Shiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radha Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Panchatattva Jaya Panchatattva Jaya Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nishpat Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Shlokarasta Sri A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नामाचार्य श्री ललिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा गिरिधारी भगवान की जय श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा मैया की जय श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Gurudev. Hare Krishna, reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita ki jai. This is from London, A Dream Fulfilled. So Prabhupada is talking to a politician, and then another man asked, if this is the absolute truth, how come there's so many people in London, but not so many people are in attendance here? Prabhupada. When you are selling diamonds, you don't expect many customers. But if you are giving out glass, the fools will come. We have a very precious thing, this Krishna consciousness movement. Don't expect that all the foolish people will take to it. Some sincere souls have come. You please also take it. Prabhupada felt encouraged by the response of the English. Regularly, the audiences would join in the chanting and dancing. In London, things are going on nicely. And last evening, we had a meeting in Conway Hall, and several hundred persons were joining us in chanting and dancing. After the meeting, one reporter from the biggest London newspaper came behind the stage to get further information about our movement for the publication in his paper. So I'm very encouraged to see the nice reception that the people and the news medias are giving to our activities in London. Late in October, Prabhupada spoke at the English Speakers Union to a predominantly Indian audience. He began his talk. Although we are a small gathering today, this is a very important meeting. India has got a message. You are all respectable Indians present here in an important city of the world, London, and I have come here with an important mission. It is not the same mission as Indians generally who have come here and to other foreign countries to beg something. I have come here to give something. So you please try to cooperate with me. On October 30th, Prabhupada lectured at Oxford Town Hall. His talk was basic, although embellished with more Sanskrit quotes than usual. His disciples had not expected much of a response from the Oxford students, yet the hall was filled. And when Prabhupada stood and gestured for everyone to raise their hands and dance, practically the entire audience responded. While Mukunda played the huge pipe organ and hundreds joined the chanting, Prabhupada held his arms high and began powerfully jumping up and down. Yesterday, we had a very successful meeting at Oxford at the town hall. About 350 boys, girls, old men, ladies, and gentlemen participated, and we made them all dance and chant with us. Everyone. After the meeting, many boys and gentlemen came to congratulate me. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Vibhavati Naishtiki Srimad-Bhagavatam Puranam-amalam Yad-Vaishnavanam Priyam Yasmin Paramhamsyam-ekam amalam Jnanam Param Giyate Tatra Jnana Viraga Bhakti Sahitam Naishkarmyam-avishkritam Tat Shrinvan Supathan Vicharana Paro Bhaktya vimuchye naraha, bhaktya vimuchye naraha, bhaktya vimuchye naraha. And Rachman Bhagavatam ki jai. We'll share screen. Okay, hopefully everybody's seeing my screen.
Yes, Prabhu, it is visible.
Thank you, Prabhu. That's reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Text 5. Chapter 5, Text 27. Mano vachodrik karane hitasya साक्षात् कृतं मे परिबर्हणं हि विनापुमान्येन महाविमोहात् कृतान्तपाशान्न विमोक्तुमीशे मनोवचोद्रेक् करणे हितस्य साक्षात् कृतं मे परिबर्हणं हि विनापुमान्येन महाविमोहात् कृतान्तपाशान्न विमोक्तुमीशे मनोवचदृक् करणे हितस्य साक्षात् कृतं मे परिबर्हणं हि विनापुमान्येन महाविमोहात् कृतान्तपाशान्न विमोक्तुमीशे Okay, devotees would like to recite.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, I am trying. Mano vachodri karane hitasya sakshat kritam me paribarhanam hi bina pumanena mahabhimohat kritanta pasanna vimuktum ishet. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
হরে কৃষ্ণ প্রভুজি দণ্ডবত প্রণাম মনোবচদ্রীকরণে হিতস্য সাক্ষাৎ কৃতম মে পরিবর্হণম হি বিনাপমানেন মহাবিমোহাৎ কৃতান্ত পাষাণ্য বিমুক্তুমীশেত হরে কৃষ্ণ
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam. May I try, please?
Sure.
Manovacho drikkarne hitasya sakshakitam me paribhanam hi veena pumamena mahabhimohat pitanat pasanana vimuktam ishet. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So we look at the word for word. Manaha, mind. Vachaha, words. Drik, sight. Karana, of the senses. Ihitasya, of all activities for maintenance of body, society, friendship, and so on. Sakshat kritam, directly offered. Me, of me. Paribarhanam, worship. He, because. Vina, without. Puman, any person. Yena, which. Mahavimohat, from the great illusion. Kritanta pashat, exactly like the stringent rope of Yamaraj. Na, not. Vimoktum, to become free. Ishet, becomes able. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The true activity of the sense organs, mind, sight, words, and all the knowledge gathering and working senses is to engage fully in my service. Unless his senses are thus engaged, a living entity cannot think of getting out of the great entanglement of material existence, which is exactly like Yamaraja's stringent rope. Anybody would like to read the purport?
হরে কৃষ্ণ প্রভুজি
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you go ahead, Mataji. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You go প্রভুজি it's okay yeah thank you
Okay. Thank you, Mataji. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. As stated in Narada Pancharatra, Sarvopadi Vinirmuktam Tad Paratvena Nirmalam Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchyate. This is the conclusion of Bhakti. All the time, Lord Rishabhdeva has been stressing devotional service, and now he is concluding by saying that all the senses should be engaged in Lord's service. There are 5 senses by which we gather knowledge and 5 senses by which we work. These 10 senses and the mind should be fully engaged in the Lord's service. Without engaging them in this way, one cannot get out of the clutches of Maya. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
No, no?
Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading the translation again. The true activity of the sense organs, mind, sight, words, and all the knowledge gathering and working senses is to engage fully in my service. Unless his senses are thus engaged, a living entity cannot think of getting out of the great entanglement of material existence, which is exactly like Yamaraja's stringent rope. So we've been hearing in this chapter, which is entitled The Teachings of Rishabdev. And we know that Rishabdev is instructing his sons, and he is doing them in a formal atmosphere, which is a conference of learned Brahmanas in Brahmavarta. So why is he instructing the sons? What is the purpose? The purpose is that in the future, his sons can rule the country or the nation most effectively. So that is the purpose. It is not just for getting them to retire, as is sometimes taken into account. So these instructions are very, very important for everybody, specifically Grihasthas. So wherever you are, sthane sthitau, what do you need to do in a way that you are able to fulfill your duties that you are required to do as a human being? So it's very, very significant, very important. 35 verses in this chapter, and this particular verse is the last of the instructions that Rishabdev is giving his sons. And it's also the conclusion of that whole instruction that he's giving. It's like the sum total. So very interesting. We'll just look at some of the interesting aspects here. It's a short purport, but let's look at the verse itself. So here, Rishabdev talks about 4 elements. So he talks about first is mano. The first word here is mano. So what does man? Obviously, we understand man means the mind. Then second, he says vacho, the words, the speech, vacho vegam. Third, he says is drik, or sight, to see. And the fourth, he says, is all the karana, all the senses. So the mind, he specifically, see, there are 10 senses, 4 knowledge acquiring senses and 4 working senses. Sorry, 5 knowledge acquiring senses and 5 working senses. So what are the knowledge acquiring senses? We understand from Bhagavad Gita as well, where Krishna clearly mentions, or Prabhupada in the purport mentions. So the 5 knowledge acquiring senses is for acquiring. Acquiring means what? To get in. So we are getting in by these 5 senses. So obviously our eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and the sense of touch. So we are interacting with the world outside within this material nature. We are interacting with our senses and assimilating things. It's coming in. We are seeing through eyes. We are hearing through our ears. It's coming in, and it's being processed by the mind. We are putting something in our mouth. So all of these senses are taking things in. So that's why they're called knowledge acquiring senses. But the working senses are senses by which we are giving something out. So the knowledge acquiring is the input sense, and working senses are output sense. So just like we are taking in through the mouth food, but we are also giving the speech. What we are saying is coming out. Similarly, the hands, we are actually doing something with our hands. We are doing something with our legs. Similarly, the genitals or the rectum, things are coming out. So all of these senses are output senses. So here, Rishabdev is saying, he's specifically highlighting these 3 things: man, vacho, drik, and all the senses, which includes all these 10. So all of these, he says, what has to happen? Sakshat kritam. Sakshat kritam me means it has to be engaged. All of these, this mind, this vacho, this drik, and all the karana, it has to be sakshat kritam me. It has to be engaged or directly offered to me, or the Supreme Personality. Now, so that's the first part. The second part, he says, what's he saying here? That unless, so some people might think, or we might assume that, okay, it's an instruction that we must engage in the Lord's service. Okay, maybe it's an option, if we feel like we'll do it. But then in the next line, he says, basically, you don't have a choice. You have to engage. Although it's mentioned as a choice initially, but later on he re-emphasizes the fact, and it's pretty much the conclusion of his instructions, that basically, unless your senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, what is going to happen? A living entity cannot think of getting out of this great entanglement in this material existence, and he gets stuck in it. How does he get stuck? Just like the very nice example given is, just like he gets stuck under the influence of the stringent rope of Yamaraj. Although I don't think we've got any experience, we will, hopefully we never have, but we hear from Shastra how strong the rope of Yamaraj is. And we also understand nobody can escape these ropes. When Yamaraj comes, we cannot say, excuse me, I just have to do a few things. Just give me a few years, let me have some children and some grandchildren, then I will come. Or let me fulfill some requirements that I need to do, then I will come. No, when the time comes, we have to go in whatever state we are. So it is very stringent. We don't have a choice. We are forced. Prabhupada says either we accept the supremacy of the Lord and we know about the Lord and we start having faith in him. If we do not, then Krishna will appear in the time of death in the stringent form with a stringent rope and forcefully take the soul out of the body. So we just have two choices: either voluntarily agree to the instructions and follow a civilized life, or be reckless and have a painful departure in terms of the body. So Yamaraja's stringent rope cannot be nullified, or cannot, it will definitely work. We cannot do anything about it. But there is an instance in Bhagavatam where the stringent rope of Yamaraj or the Yamadutas was actually destroyed or cut. I'm sure everybody knows it, but still, somebody want to shout out? The stringent rope of Yamaraj or Yamadutas was cut the only time.
In the case of Ajamil, Prabhu.
Ajamil, absolutely. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yes, that was the only exception. And when the stringent rope of Yamaraj was cut, it was cut by the Vishnu Dutas. Because as we understand from Ajamil Leela, the Yamadutas immediately came and they bound him with the stringent rope. And they were about to take him away when Vishnu Dutas came and cut those ropes. And when they cut it, it is said that these Yamadutas, they were shocked. Like sometimes when you're expecting something, you can prepare. But when you're not expecting, you're shocked. You just don't know how to react. So they have never been stopped or impeded by somebody, what to talk about cutting the rope before. Never it has happened before. So when these Vishnu Doots did this, they were shocked. They just didn't know who these people are and how come they are more powerful than Yamaraj. They just couldn't comprehend it. So we understand how difficult it is to get out of the stringent rope. So that's why in this verse, Rishabdev specifically gives us that example. So we know that this rope or this whole maze is always binding us. And that's why if you see in our Prasadam prayers, what do we say? Sharira avidya jal, jodendriyo tahe kal. So this whole body is enmeshed in this web of ignorance. Sharira avidya, ignorance, and jal. We're stuck in this web. And In that, Jodendriya Tahekal. So all these senses are deadly enemies. Kal means they are enemies. They're leading us towards death. Iska kal hoga, we say. Iska kal aa gaya hai. So the senses are forcefully, they are like a deadly enemy taking us towards our final destination, towards death. And amongst all of these senses, tar moddhe jivhavati, this tongue, this tongue, tar moddhe jivhavati, lobhomoy sudurmati. It's very greedy, lobhomoy. And shudurmati means very, very wicked. So this tongue is very wicked. And then, of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, how we can control it by feeding it only prasad. And that is one of the most important parts of Nectar of Instruction, first verse as well. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jivha vegam, and udara upashta vegam. So this, we are constantly dealing with these senses, this push and pull of the senses. And the mind is, unless it is trained by the intelligence, is only aggravating us. Is only making us go here and there and get diverted, deviated. So if we are not having our regular spiritual practices in the association of devotees, we will be in this web. And ultimately, the Yamaraja's pash will pull the soul away from the body. So he is, in this particular instance, he is very clear, Rishabdev is very clear that if you are not engaging the senses in the Lord's service, the Yamaraja's rope is waiting for you. And it will be very painful and you can do nothing about it. You have to enter another womb and start all over again. Restart the whole process. So we see how these 10 working senses which we are able to perceive. We understand there are 24 material elements. I think in chapter 13, in the purport of 7th text, I think, Prabhupada writes all about those 24 elements. But of those elements, these knowledge acquiring and working senses are most important. These are the 10 senses we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. They're very tangible, very practical, and we have to find ways and means to engage these senses appropriately. So the senses cannot be stopped. As we hear from Bhagavad Gita, it cannot be stopped. We have been given the mind and senses to keep it functional. But the mind doesn't know what is it that the senses should engage in. So it constantly tries to find ways to be engaged, thinking this is better, this is better, this is best. But the mind doesn't know. So it's just like a monkey moving from one branch to the other. Whereas this process of Krishna consciousness, especially that Prabhupada has given us, is giving us that impetus to understand that these are the senses, how do I need to apply them? Because some of these senses also have the urges that we hear in Nectar of Instruction. So sometimes the senses produce urges, and those urges cannot really be controlled. Like, for example, we have desires. We all have desires. And desires come and go. And we, to some extent, can control the desires in terms of thinking about having desires about something, acquiring something, or if our mind moves to something better, or we feel that the priority is something else, we can pull back the previous desire and focus on the next desire. So desires can be manifested or unmanifested, but urges, it cannot be controlled. When the urge comes, it has to exit. Just the example of, when somebody has to go to the toilet, can be controlled, maybe for some time. But after a certain point, it cannot be controlled. It has to exit in some form or the other. It has to come out. So that is an urge. So all of our senses, when it is uncontrolled, it is an urge. Specifically, these ones, the the propensity to speak, our anus, our genitals, our tongue, they are all urges. So the first instruction of nectar of instruction that Rupa Goswami gives us is, unless we are able to, he says, tolerate the urges. He doesn't say control. He says we have to tolerate the urges. And what do we need to do after tolerating them? We need to redirect them. So instead of focusing on something that is of no use to us, let us focus it in a place which is going to give us permanent results. Instead of satisfying our own senses, our own sense gratification, let us engage it in the senses of the Supreme Lord, in serving the devotees of the Lord. So this aspect is very, very important. And sometimes we are proud that we've got very strong senses. Even animals have senses. And if you think about it, some of the animals have got better senses than us. But the sense perception or the senses that animals have sometimes can lead that animal to its own destruction. For example, a deer. A deer has a very strong sense of sound. It can hear sound from very far. And we often hear that the best way to catch a deer, or a hunter when he has to catch a deer, the deer gets influenced by very nice music, especially playing the flute or some nice music, and it just gets stunned, almost frozen in one point. And that becomes the point of destruction, where he's or she's not alert and gets caught. Similarly, an elephant, so strong, physically so strong, but because of the sex impulse, as soon as the he elephant sees the she elephant, he gets drawn to that. Of course, even humans for that matter. But the elephant gets drawn. So although the elephant is very strong, very able, it gets drawn. So what does the hunter do? It takes advantage of this. He places the she elephant in the front, and the elephant that it wants to capture is kept in front of the she elephant, and then they dig a big hole on the way and they cover it so it's not visible. And when the he elephant, because of that urge, moves towards the she elephant on the way, goes over that covered porthole and then falls into it. And then the elephant is kept there till it gets subdued. It is fed a little bit. And then when the elephant sees that I'm here, I'm stuck, but this fellow is feeding me, then the elephant starts obeying the hunter. And then it gets captured. So we see that even in animals who are so-called free, the senses lead them to their own destruction, to their own captivity. And all of them don't have, they have all the senses, but only maybe some of them are more prominent than the others. But in human beings, all of our senses are prominent. And so there is this possibility or probability that, like, an animal is drawn towards their own destruction on account of one strong sense. Whereas as a human being, we've got so many strong senses. Like, even if we say knowledge acquiring senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and it's so strong. So if it is not engaged in the service of the Lord, it can lead us towards destruction. In fact, we are 5 times more susceptible to move towards our own destruction as compared to an animal. So the risk as a human being is much higher than the animal. But on the other hand, an animal does not have the liberty or the ability to think beyond and to do something that only human beings can do. So these senses are there, this body is there, subtle body is there. Animals cannot practice something that only human beings can. with this body, with this mind, with the senses. And what is that thing that only human beings can do? Not animals. It is austerity. Austerity. Voluntary austerity. So if we are only here to satisfy our senses, then we are leading a very reckless life, risky life, and we know we are only moving closer towards destruction by the passing of each single day. Whereas if the same sense objects are taught to be engaged in the service of the Lord, how? By austerity. How? By regulation. So nothing needs to be stopped, but everything needs to be regulated. And that whole aspect of regulation itself is an element of austerity. So unless somebody is practicing austerity, they cannot make any progress and they cannot engage the senses in Krishna's service. So when we say engage the senses means what? It means that we have to practice austerity. We have to voluntarily, for a higher purpose, for the pleasure of Guru, of devotees, we voluntarily take on inconvenience for our body, for our mind, for our senses. But because the purpose is higher, in spite of taking on bodily inconveniences, there is a level of bliss that we experience. True or no? Why are we fasting? Why are we taking on so much services? Physically or mentally, if you think about it, does anybody like to do service? Does anybody like to do work? Anybody here who loves to do work? I love cleaning the house. Nobody likes. I love going to work. Nobody likes. I love doing gardening. Nobody likes. But when we take it on as a voluntary austerity for a higher purpose, I don't like gardening, but I would rather do gardening, spend at least 1 day a week or a few days a week so that I can grow some nice flowers and I can offer Krishna. So it's just an example. Similarly, work. So when everything is done for a higher purpose and voluntary austerity is practiced, then and only then the senses can be engaged in the Lord's service. We understand from Bhagavatam, there's that nice verse that say, Dharma svanushtita pumsam vishvak sena katha soyaha notapadaye yadiratim shrama eva hi kevalam. That if you are not able to engage in the service of the Lord, then shrama eva hi kevalam. All this hard work and labor that we put in is down the drain. Shrama eva hi kevalam. It is just down the drain. It has no value at all. And it has no benefit to us at all. So we have to engage in austerity. As soon as we start engaging in voluntary austerity, what happens? The byproduct, Rishabdev gives in the previous verses as well in his instruction. So he says that the miseries automatically, the first result of engaging in austerity is that the miseries get mitigated. It's not that miseries stop coming, but the person who's engaged in this austerity is not affected by the intensity of those miseries anymore. And because he's not affected, he is pretty much coming to a platform where he feels bliss, where he feels liberated. He doesn't feel the impact of this material existence and the miseries that are surrounding him. He does not feel that. So although he's in the material world, he is still liberated. He's on a liberated platform. Sometimes we mistake thinking, what is that liberated platform? Some platform will come and we stand on it and become liberated. No, it doesn't happen that way. But it gives us the tools and the means by which we are not affected by the problems around us. And that is the spiritual platform. So Srila Prabhupada, he's given us this process of bhakti to engage our senses effectively, practice austerity, and experience the bliss, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, na shochati na kankshati. So we have to become Brahma Bhuta, to come to the stage of Brahma Bhuta, where these miseries don't touch us. And that is the spiritual platform. That is the level at which we experience bliss, at least some form of bliss. And when people around us, they see that in spite of doing so much, in spite of running so much, in spite of being so busy over the weekends, like today, Monday morning, we go to office. What is the first thing people ask? Oh, how was the weekend? And what would people say? Oh, I played this, or I do that, I went here. And what do we devotees say? We went to the temple, we went to a program. Yeah. Almost every weekend, we repeat the same thing, just as they repeat the same thing. But when they finish talking about their weekend and they talk about Monday, they feel very down. Oh my God, I'm back to reality and I don't like it. And there's another 5 days to go. And oh my God. Whereas a devotee, because he's done this service, he's connected to the Lord, and he is experiencing that bliss which is with him. He does not feel down on a Monday morning. Although he may not like to work all the 5 days, but he doesn't feel down. That energizes him. That surcharge, and the connection with Bhagavatam, like we are having right now, is surcharging us. So when somebody sees us surcharged, they may get a bit amazed. This guy is something different. He does the same thing every week, but he feels quite positive when he comes Monday morning. And that is something for others to experience. Of course, we have to experience that first. But when we are on that platform, automatically people around us also are drawn, are captivated. Of course, we're not doing it for that, but that's a byproduct. So being in connection with Krishna or the Supreme Lord is very tangible. We can actually experience it. It is not something just on a theoretical level. We have to follow it. We have to experience it. And then we have personal realizations. So the spiritual platform is established when we engage in voluntary austerity and we are serving the devotees, working together cooperatively with the devotees in serving the Supreme Lord. And that is a perfection of human existence. So Rishabdev concludes this whole section of devotional service. In fact, this whole Bhagavatam is all about devotional service, although there are different other parts mentioned. So this particular section is very important. And we also, this 5.5.18 is one of the most popular and famous verses which is quoted very often by Prabhupada, by the devotees, of how the person who is in charge, who has dependents, the responsibility of the dependents under that person, if that person cannot make his dependents Krishna conscious, he should not take up that responsibility. It's so important. So Rishabdev himself has taken on that responsibility, and he's training his children to follow this path on a very practical level and ultimately use this instruction to rule wisely all over the earth and carry on the legacy under the instructions of his father for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. And that is something we can imbibe in our life as well. We may not be kings, but as parents, we have children to look after. So it is our duty to instruct the kids appropriately, age-wise, and tell them what needs to be done or what should be done. The earlier, the better. And then we have to also facilitate process. We cannot just leave it to them. That, okay, I'm telling you, now you go. No, it's not just that. We can't push. At the same time, it is our duty to find ways and opportunities to facilitate. Because unless we are encouraging them to do, they will not get the experience. Unless they get the experience, they will not have personal realization. And unless there is personal realization, there is no motivation or inspiration to follow the good path. Because let's face it, in today's Kali Yuga, it is very easy to do bad things. It is very easy to go astray. It is very easy to speculate, but it is very difficult to do good things. So if we do not take it upon us, forget others, but at least can we take care of our family? Can we take care of our kids? At least give them the right instruction, the right education, the right insights. Translate the teachings of Prabhupada in a way that they are able to understand and they see the benefit in following those instructions. Then we are not doing our duty. I see so many people, I often give the example of parents complaining that my kid doesn't eat this or eat that, or my kid doesn't listen to me. And I'm talking about small kids, like between 5 to 10 years old. And what do you say to such people? The reality is they haven't done their duty. Of course, there may be exceptions, but they haven't done their duty. So we cannot shirk away from this. Rishabdev is telling, this is specifically for all parents, that we cannot shirk away from our duty. Even if it doesn't work, we have to keep trying. We have to keep trying. We have to keep trying. We have taken up this responsibility. The fact that Krishna has blessed us with children means what? Just like he has given us senses, the working senses and knowledge acquiring senses. He has given it why? For a purpose, so that we can use it appropriately in his service. Similarly, if he has given us children or dependents, or has put us in a position of responsibility where we are responsible for other people, other devotees under us, then we have to take it as a responsibility to deliver them, to give them the message and ensure their welfare. And this is the prime duty Prabhupada has done. And he wants all his followers also to follow him and lead the process and bring everybody to Krishna and ensure everybody's senses are dovetailed in Krishna's service. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Okay, happy to take any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much, as usual, for a very nice class, bringing out the importance how we should, Rishabdev is telling us how we should utilize our senses and mind and everything for the service of the Lord. Because unless we do it, the laws of material nature is, Prabhupada is so stringent that we have to face, I mean, those who do not do that have to face the Lord as a death, and the stringent law of nature one cannot avoid. So it is better for us as a human being who have got better intelligence than other animal life. We should utilize it for the service of the Lord. And for that, we have to voluntarily undertake the responsibility of utilizing our senses for the service of the Lord, as against the default mode is to utilize for a personal or body sense enjoyment. And Rishabdev is giving the importance, and as you've told in this verse, is concluding that we have to make our human life purposeful only by accepting voluntary responsibility, utilizing our sense for a higher purpose, so that we make proper use of them. Otherwise, it will be diverted to them by the influence of Maya. And our desire if we utilize for the service of the Lord in this way, we can make ourselves, our life purposeful, and at the same time, while doing that, who are dependent on us, as you have told, I think the verse is 5:18, that the person who is responsible for others, for below him, Guru Noshat, Noshashat, Shajano Noshashat. By that, as it is telling those who are dependent on you, it is your responsibility to save them as well. So we have to ourselves become responsible to lead our life in a godly manner towards Lord, and then redirect others who are depending on us to exactly follow our path. And in this way, we can make our life successful, and also the life of others who are dependent on us. Thank you very much for bringing that point very clearly. And if anybody has any other things, this is my realization, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Okay, any other questions, comments, additions?
Hey, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhamma Pranam.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you for unpacking this verse so nicely in so many different ways. You have instructed that one should not have disciple or children if we are not able to take them out of this cycle of birth and death and engage in devotional service. But in sometimes the parents are trying very hard, or the guru is trying very hard, but the dependent are not responding. So in that way, can we say the guru or the parents have failed?
Very good question, Prabhu. That's why I did add in when I was explaining that there may be some exceptions. I mean, in all situations, Prabhu, we understand there are exceptions, because people or living entities taking to the path of Krishna consciousness is also dependent on their past karma, and a lot of other factors are there. But notwithstanding all of that, it is about the responsibility. I mean, at the end of the day, our responsibility is to help and facilitate as much as possible. But the result of that is dependent on Krishna. So we cannot, force somebody to do something and ensure that they come to a certain position, because that is not in our hands. But the training and the facilitation process, giving of instructions and helping them understand and follow those instructions, the training process itself is in our hands. So the parent's responsibility, or the responsibility of the leader, is to ensure the dependents are trained properly. So if it is the case, if everything goes well, usually it works. But there are certain cases where it doesn't work, where there is nothing to feel despondent. That's what it was. For example, it's not that all the disciples initiated by Prabhupada became pure devotees or even continued their Krishna conscious activities. A lot of them left the movement and went back to what they were doing. So do we say that Prabhupada was not successful? No. Prabhupada was successful in what he did. Why? Because Prabhupada fulfilled the responsibility of going or undergoing a training schedule for them. He at least taught them, gave them the instructions. So that is what we should be concerned about, not the end result of what actually happens, because that's not in our hands. So as long as we are focused on our duty and responsibility, I think that's all we should focus on, and that's what we should be concerned about. Hopefully that answers me.
Thank you for clarifying this important point. Because why I raise this point is that I have some god brothers whose children were very well trained. They became initiated devotees, but eventually they're not practicing. All the resources were provided initially by the parents, but when they grew up, they're just not interested. So it's sad affair, but it happens. So thank you.
And also sometimes, see, it's good to do this under guidance. So parents also, it's not that every parent knows everything. So parents also need guidance. I mean, I'm just giving an example of parents. It could be any leader or any person who has a responsible position. That person also needs guidance. So sometimes we may not be guiding or training properly. We think we are doing the right thing, but we may not be. So it's also good to get advice on that account. There are other senior devotees, other responsible people that we can take advice from and ask that, am I doing the right thing? Or am I too strict? Or am I too lenient? Or what are the other ways I can do to create opportunities for my dependents? So having that Sangha is very important. So we constantly look at improvising and providing the instructions and the training facilities in the most easily acceptable way. And we try to be innovative in that regard. But the responsibility should never be shirked.
Thank you, Prabhu. The other way to look at it is this instruction are like time bound. Maybe not in this lifetime, maybe next lifetime, this instruction be provided in mature and they'll become devotees. So yeah, we are looking at what short-term results. Maybe is this we are the disciple or the guru or the parents are investing, but maybe not the fruit are not visible in this lifetime, maybe the next lifetime. So that is my follow. This is another way of looking at this thing, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
And it's also, Prabhu, one of the first instructions Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita Karma Yoga as well, where he says Karmane Vadhikaraste. So you do your work. Don't be worried about the result. You do your responsibility, you do your duty, you do it to the best of your ability. What happens as a result of your ability or your responsibility, you leave that to me. So although we do get attached to the result, or we have expectation from what we are doing, that's the key thing, is to just focus on my duties rather than my result. And keeping us in the right devotee association, Sajati Ashaya Snigdhe, Sadhu Sango Swatovare. So if we have association of like-minded devotees, then there is a good chance that we will remain focused in what we are imparting rather than focusing on the result. So good discussion, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Thank you. Very good, very nicely clarified, Prabhu. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? No, all good. Everybody satisfied? Monday morning, ready to go. All foiled up. Okay, so
We'll end here.
Prabhu.
Vanchakalpadruvesya
Sindhubhyayavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavibhyo namo namah.
Anantakoti Vaishnava ki jai.
Jai.
His Grace Sri Krishna Prabhu ki jai,
Jai.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.